Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 19 of All About Nothing. It is finally warming up here in San Francisco. I am so relieved. So, thanks for joining us today. I am so heartened because at the trauma conference in Boston that I recently went to, one of the keynote speakers, the attachment research luminary, Carlin Lyons Ruth, whose work I've been following diligently for about 30 years now, she gave a keynote about neglect. And she provided the evidence basis for a lot of the things that we knew that we've been talking about, but she validated it with her, painstaking academic and scientific research. And one of the things that she said, which we already knew, we've been talking about it, but it's nice to have the evidence basis for it, is that neglect is not only an absence, but it is an actual threat. It is a primary traumatic threat, and perhaps the primary traumatic experience for a child. Certainly, as it happens developmentally, so early in the brain and organism's development. And one of the things that she said, which I found really interesting, she was talking about the very troubling and obvious intergenerational transmission of neglect and how it makes its way from generation to generation, which makes sense because a traumatized mother is most likely to be distracted or to be dissociated or to be absent or to be troubled or depressed or one way or another unable to really be present to their child. So, one of the things that she spoke to in her presentation was how do we help these mothers so that they do better with their own children, so that this chain of intergenerational transmission of neglect can be disrupted, can be stopped. How can we stop this intergenerational, onslaught from generation to generation to generation? And one of the things that she said, which once again was not news to us, but she said the best way to train these mothers, to educate them and help them learn is every time they do something well, every time they are accurately attuned or responsive or truly present with their infant, to name it and point it out and say, yeah, you did that. That's great. Do that some more. And the positive reinforcement is self-perpetuating. That's how they learn. That's how we learn. That's how neurofeedback works. You reward the brain and it does it more. You reward the brain and it does it more. And one thing that I teach all my couples when I work with couples in my office is to really capitalize on the positive. John Gottman, the marriage researcher, has told us in no uncertain terms that the way we break even in relationship, not make progress, not backslide, but simply stay at the state that we're in, is with a positive to negative ratio of 5 to 1. This means 5 appreciations for every grumble, 5 thank yous for every complaint, 5 smiles for every furrowed brow, 5 smiles and thank yous and appreciative gestures and touches and hugs for every grimace and pulling away and rejected gesture, just to break even. And Gottman tells us he has a concept he calls positive sentiment override. And what this means is when we have a reserve of positive in our relationship bank, when we have a cushion of positive, the negative kind of bounces off. We have more resilience. We have more ability to regulate and find our balance again from being upset or offset or dysregulated. We can find our balance again. So, building up the positive is the best way out. So, what I try and do with people is help them not only express appreciation, not only smile more, but actually, in terms of your self talk, to know, to notice, to pay attention when you're getting it right, if you will, and to kind of pat yourself on the back a little bit and say, wow, I can do that. I did that. Yay. Like me, this past weekend, I had so much work, I didn't think I could make it. And I just thought, oh my God, this feels like when I used to do those 200-mile bicycle rides in a day. And I just thought, how am I going to make it up this 15,000-foot climb, you know, in one day without dying, without collapsing? And then at the end of the day, I was kind of euphoric and I just thought, wow, I made it. And I sort of felt that way yesterday, like, wow, I can't believe I got it all done. I'm not going to overcommit to that extent again, but to actually notice when I do well and to pay attention, not only with others, not only with our loved ones and with our partners and with our clients and with our trainees and with our children, but actually with ourselves. Because so often I say to people and I say to myself, you wouldn't treat anyone, you wouldn't talk to anyone the way you talk to yourself. Cut it out and do it right. The Dalai Lama said, be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. And similarly, even the way we use language, instead of speaking in terms of what not to do, or what you didn't do, or what you didn't do wrong, if you will, to express yourself in positive language. Like instead of saying, thanks for not doing such and such, you say, thanks for doing such and such instead of the other. Thanks for completing the task instead of bailing. Thanks for finishing the dishes instead of leaving them for me, or whatever it is. Thank you for not being late, but rather, thanks for being on time. It's much more reinforcing. And another bit of good news that I learned from one of my great teachers, and probably, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest couples therapist of all time, Pat Love, who I believe is retired by now, but she's one of my great teachers. She taught me that we're hardwired for altruism. And when we do something good for someone else, because we're pack animals, we do something positive and we get a dopamine surge. Dopamine is that endogenous opioid. It's like that internal natural morphine drug, that that opiate in the brain that makes us feel great. We get a dopamine surge from doing something for someone else, doing something good. It feels wonderful. And what I always say, and what I know to be true for myself over and over and over again, is the one who benefits the most from expressing appreciation, from giving a gift, is the giver, is the appreciator. I am the one that wins. So that is definitely a win-win-win because I give you something. If it's something that you really would want, not something that I want you to want or that I want to give you or that I think you should want or something like that, but actually something that would in fact make you happy from your point of view. If I do that for you and I make you happy, the one who gets the most out of it is me. Can you beat that? So do something positive today. Do something positive for yourself. And this sorry world really needs all the smiles, all the thank yous, all the good stuff that we can provide, that we can offer, that we can do. And those little things, they go a long way, those little acknowledgments. And I love to acknowledge and champion the invisible because the child of neglect is so used to being invisible. So to acknowledge the people that usually get ignored or taken for granted, like your service people or your tech support people or your customer service people, or your repair people, or your delivery people, the people who generally only hear the complaints or nothing. If they hear a special thank you from us, we can probably make their day. And it certainly makes me feel good. I get the dopamine surge. So, who wins? We do. So, have a great day and do something positive. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.